Okay. So now March 2022, you're at a championship. Maybe you can fill us in on the details here. And is this the first time that you come up against Leah Thomas particularly?
This is the first time I had swim against Leah Thomas. A little earlier.
Okay, so tell us that story. And how did you find out? Tell us the whole story. How did you find out that this was even going to happen?
So
how did you respond and how did your team respond?
So in about November of 2021, November, December time period, this is about the middle of our season. It's my senior year. I had made it my goal to become a national champion. The year prior, I finished 7th in the country, and I knew I could do better. There was a lot of girls who finished above me, who were graduating, or who they weren't competing in the same events for whatever reason. So I knew I could perform better than I had the year before. About November, December, I was on track to do so. I was ranked 3rd in the country behind one amazing female swimmer who I knew very well, because like in most sports, your top tier athletes, you know each other, regardless of where you compete in the country, which school you go to, what events you even swim, because you've grown up competing against each other. And she was, of course, ranked 2nd. And the person who was ranked 1st this was the first time I became aware of Leah Thomas. But at the time, unbeknownst to me, this was a male. There was a lot of red flags, one of which being this was a swimmer from University of Pennsylvania, which is not a school that historically produces fast swimmers. Think of basketball. You have your schools that historically are pretty good. I've never heard of anyone come from University of Pennsylvania and be a decent swimmer. 2, this person was a senior, which was bizarre. Swimming is a sport where typically you peak when you're younger. To peak when you're 22 years old, that's not common. 3, this swimmer was ranked at the top in everything, all the freestyle events, from the 100 freestyle, which is a sprint, everything in between to the mile, which the mile is long distance. And so think about your Olympic runners. Your best 200-meter runner is not your best marathon runner, but that's what we were seeing in this individual. Those are totally different systems. Lots of head scratching.
Right. So we should concentrate on that for a second, because I think your comments there are particularly germane, because when you're competing at a very high level, small differences in specialization are going to loom large.
Absolutely.
And as you said, in the Olympics, the people who win the sprinting events aren't the people who win the long distance events. Those are, even though both of them are running, there's enough difference between those formats of running and the strategies to completely differentiate the athletes. Now, but you're seeing someone who is all of a sudden far above the average on a whole sequence of events that shouldn't be associated in that manner.
Right.
And so there's something in the woodpile that isn't just exactly right. And you said at that time, you didn't know that this individual, Leah Thomas, was male.
No idea. Lots of head scratching. Mm-hmm. Who is this person? I talked to my coaches. He knew my goals, and he knew this person was a threat to my goals. And we're trying to figure out, why have we never heard of this girl, we thought at the time? Why have we never heard of this person? We talked amongst our team. It was this feeling
How the hell did you not know? How is it possible that you didn't know and that your coaches didn't know that this person was male? Like, this is so weird, because it's not like you wouldn't normally, as you said, know who your competitors are. How was this little secret, let's say, kept secret?
I think it was something the university kept under wraps for a while, and I didn't compete, again, directly against this person. I had no idea what this person looked like, no idea that this person was 6'4", and it just seemed so far-fetched that this could be a male. It never even once crossed my mind. Never once. I was more apt to believe that this was just someone who appeared than it being a male. I thought that would never happen, especially at the level we were competing at. But it was only a few days after these nation-leading times were posted that an article came out. And I'm talking in a very brief sentence, as if we were supposed to just read over it and continue on. And the article didn't say this. Very briefly, the article says, Leah Thomas is formerly Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania before deciding to switch over to the women's team, and then continued on. And so my coach sent me the article, and he says, you need to look at this. And I read it, and I have to read it again. And I was shocked, naturally, of course, when I read this. But truthfully, it felt like a sense of relief. It made it all make sense. It makes sense why this person is dominating everyone. Again, I'm relating back to my experiences in competing and training, I guess, practicing with men. Naturally, this person is dominating. That's why I say it felt like relief, because I was then able to look up who Will Thomas was. I was curious, was this a lateral movement? Was this someone who went from ranking first to continuing to rank first? Which is, of course, not what we saw. We saw someone...
No, let's talk about what we saw, yeah, because this is absolutely relevant psychologically, and this is where I think the rubber really hits the road. Because, it would be one thing, perhaps, to have someone who was outstanding in their fair competition then become outstanding in your competition. But although Will Thomas was a decent swimmer, he was by no means outstanding. So you could say that comparatively speaking, it wasn't exactly as if he was a failure, because he was a competitive swimmer, but he was no bloody champion. And so to me, and I'm speaking as a psychologist here, that begs the question is that, well, he wasn't spectacularly successful on the male front. And so you might ask, well, exactly what are the motivations for choosing to be spectacularly successful on the female front? And that doesn't strike me as part of the bounds of fair competition in any sense of the word whatsoever, psychologically or socially. Okay, so let's talk about Will Thomas's pre-female record as a swimmer.
Absolutely. So what we saw the year prior, at best, Leah, when Leah was Will, was ranked 462nd nationally among the men, at best. So, of course, that's again why I felt relief, because I thought, of course, it was obvious, just looking at what's on the paper in front of us, this was not a lateral movement by any means. I thought the NCAA, which is, of course, the governing body who would ultimately decide if Thomas got to compete with the women, I thought they would see it exactly how I saw it. Nothing opinionated, nothing hateful, nothing rooted in hate. The facts of it. What we were looking at, that is not how the NCAA saw it. They saw absolutely nothing wrong with allowing Thomas to go from a mediocre male to now the fastest woman in the country.